Hi, and welcome to the sixth and final episode of The Real Wall, a series dealing with the separation of church and state in American government. If you have not seen the preceding installments, I'd recommend that you pause this video and return to it after catching up. Under Section 501c3 of the IRS tax code, churches and religious organizations are granted exemption from federal income tax on the basis that they perform charitable work that is in accordance with American values. The qualifications for tax-exempt status include some of the following. The organization may not hold purposes and activities that are illegal or violate public policy. The organization may not intervene in political campaigns or attempt to influence legislation. And the organization must be organized and operate exclusively for religious, educational, scientific, or other charitable purposes. Let's examine these criteria one by one. First of all, note what the last qualification says. The IRS defines charitable work as not just educational or scientific, but also simply religious. Is religion, by its nature, charitable? Some religious groups may be, but it does not follow that all of them are. How does this qualification and definition not contradict the First Amendment, which specifically instructs Congress not to respect an establishment of religion? Keep in mind that tax exemptions are not constitutional rights. They are granted by Congress. Also notice that there is no stipulation here about the charity work done by religious groups. It merely says religious organizations are charitable. This is further shown in the fact that churches receive automatic exemptions. They need not even file for recognition. Considering religion itself to be charitable and worthy of tax-exempt status is a clear violation of the First Amendment. Many religious believers who denounce the prohibition on church or pastor endorsement of political candidates fail to understand that the IRS is preventing them from doing so, not Congress or any atheistic cabal of Supreme Court judges. If a pastor or church wishes to influence legislation or support a candidate, they only need to forfeit their tax exemption to have that freedom. Once again, tax exemptions are not a constitutional right, and these are the rules as the IRS sets them. If your church or religious organization wants to pay no income tax, it has to abide by the IRS rules. Personally, I think churches and religious groups have already mired themselves in politics enough that they should be stripped of their tax-exempt status and given their full rights to back whatever candidate or legislation they want. The last qualification is where I find things to be most problematic. The IRS and Congress believe that religious organizations and churches are in accordance with public policy. Generally, this means that they can't break any laws or embrace discriminatory practices, and the reason for this is that exempting an organization from taxes is based on the idea that they provide some public benefit, which the state might have to provide otherwise. In the 1971 case of Coit v. Green, it was ruled that charitable organizations work to serve the general welfare and are expected to be beneficial to the community. In 1976, Bob Jones University, a private Protestant school, had its exemption revoked by the IRS for racial segregation policies. Amazingly, when the school pled that their policies were part of their religious conviction, the district court and several subsequent courts ruled in favor of the university, until the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the decision in 1980. Do churches and religious organizations provide a public benefit? Remember, we are not talking about charity work on the part of these groups. We are talking about the groups themselves. The IRS does not investigate any church to see what they do to help the community. It is taken on faith that they all do. But if tax-exempt status can be revoked for racial discrimination, why are religious institutions not stripped of their exemptions for discriminating against gays? Are these organizations working to serve the general welfare by teaching abstinence only and spreading misinformation about contraception? What about the ones that teach their congregations not to be vaccinated, that the apocalypse is just around the corner, or that characterize Muslims as Satan worshippers? In one way or another, I think every single church and religious organization has beliefs or practices that may be considered contrary to public policy, to general welfare, and which provide harm rather than benefit. Taxes are paid by people of many different religious views, too, and exempting some groups from the income tax but not others, like atheist or agnostic organizations, is unfairly favoring religion over irreligion, which is a direct violation of the First Amendment. I say remove tax exemptions from religious groups and give them only to whatever organizations do actually constitute a public benefit. If a church has a ministry that gives food to the homeless, let that group file for tax-exempt status, but not the church as a whole. Simply being a religious institution should not grant you such privileges under our Constitution. The income tax is not the only tax that churches manage to avoid, though. A 1970 article in Time magazine revealed that churches in the U.S. own approximately $102 billion in untaxed properties. One of the most frequent objections to taxing church property has been that it would give the government control of religious institutions. However, looking at the way businesses pay property tax and operate with little government interference beyond safety and legal restrictions kind of makes me wonder if this argument isn't a bankrupt one. When you're really honest about it, churches are businesses. They collect tithes from their congregations, market and sell books, CDs, magazines, and all kinds of products, and each church appeals to its own members. The claim that churches are a benefit of the community is ridiculous, as they actually benefit select segments of the community. Additionally, when a church is given an exemption on taxes, the rest of us who do pay taxes get to compensate for them. Imagine what your city could do with a few extra $1,000s a year. Maybe it could lower property taxes in general, and then we could all pay a fair and balanced amount. I do sympathize with those who feel that taxing churches would give the government too much power over them, because our present tax system has become a monstrosity that tends to do that. I am an advocate of tax reform, and I think that something like the fair tax could tremendously help to even out the playing field and collect tax monies from those who are not reporting. The bottom line is that whether our tax system changes or not, unfairly favoring religion in any manner violates the separation of church and state. There are also many individuals like the creationist minister Kent Hovind who argue that they should pay no taxes whatsoever because their religion has them believing that everything they own is the property of God, not government. I have met a few similar people in my own life who feel that because government is corrupt and ungodly, they should not endorse it by paying taxes, as if being forced to pay taxes is willfully endorsing anything. Hovind is currently serving 10 years in prison for tax evasion. The thing that strikes me about so many of these believers who refuse to pay their taxes is that none of them seem to know what their Bibles say on the matter. Matthew 22:17-21 tells of how a group of men approach Jesus and ask him if it is right to pay taxes. Christ famously replies, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's." In other words, be faithful in your civil duties, but keep your heart and mind for God. But Romans 13:5-7 puts it best. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also because of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants, who give their full time to governing. Give everyone what you owe him. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. So Christians, you tell me, should you and your religion pay taxes? Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the series, and hopefully we all better understand the necessity of separating church and state in America, for the good of the religious and the non-religious alike.